amateur players take their game to the next level.
There's no crying in baseball.
Forget about the curveball, Ricky. Give him the heater.
You're killing me, Schmalz.
Candlesticks always make a nice wedding present.
Oh, people take vacations shorter than that. Pick me out a winner, Bobby.
Now here is your show and go team.
Hello, hello.
Back.
Is everybody tired?
Yes.
Oh, yeah?
It's like 2 a.m. right now.
I know. That's what spring training is. 8 o'clock feels like 2 a.m.
How's it going, Tim? How's spring training?
Mm-hmm. It's going pretty good. I got called into the front of the room in front of pitchers and catchers today. That was totally embarrassing.
Oh, yeah. You've never been embarrassed a day in your life.
I'm constantly embarrassed. They were like, is this awkward for you? I was like, totally, but this is my life. I'm awkward.
And then you pulled out your phone and started videoing.
Yeah. And I was like, thanks, Chris Woodward, manager of the Texas Rangers. I'm going to need you to be in a video.
We're gonna
and follow me.
We're going to do a Latin song with him.
Yeah. I need you to learn this song. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode. This is a baseball podcast to help and educate the amateur player as well as coaches and parents about the game within the game. My name is Tim Dillard, professional pitcher for the last 16 years. And if I don't screw up spring training, I'll have a 17th. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my short-term goal here.
Play the whole season. If we could just make it through the whole season.
Yes.
Yeah, we all have goals.
That'll be a success.
Yeah. And as we do this remotely, we're, what is this, the Brady Bunch? We're like looking down to our left and right. So, Ben, I don't know where you're at, but.
I'm in the tack room of my barn.
Oh, yeah. So you're in Tennessee.
Yeah.
There you go.
But, yes, I have a refrigerator behind me. If you can, you guys can't see it, but there's on the video, there's a refrigerator behind me, and I'm probably going to pull out a snack during the episode at some point.
Yeah, no, we saw you smacking on some grapes earlier.
Got to get that fruit in you.
Yeah, do it. Anyway, Ben Zobrist, 2016 World Series MVP. Yeah, thanks.
2016.
Old news.
That's what I said. Is that not what I said?
Let's go with 2019 World Series.
2009. Yeah.
Whoa, calling a shot.
That would be sick. Probably not going to happen.
Babe Ruth did that once. He called his shot. Anyway, to wherever he is on the Brady Bunch square, super platinum elite, and finally with us because he's missed some episodes, trainer to the stars, Joshua Costello. Thanks for finally being here, man.
J Money.
I feel honored. Thank you.
Love the enthusiasm.
He's a man of many words.
And rounding out our perfectly square right angles is head baseball coach at Trevecca Nazarene University there in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, Ryan Schmalz. How we doing?
What's up, man? Mm-hmm. Good to see you, boys.
Got to watch Coach in action the other day, guys. Watched him in action.
You're not allowed to come
third
back.
for
You're
his
not allowed
team.
to come back. So we lost the game that Ben came to.
Yeah,
so
no, it's kind of unfortunate. Every game I've ever been to, they've lost. So I'm not going to show up anymore.
Can you stay?
Definitely stop showing up.
Can you stay the heck away from our program, please?
Well, that's the thing is like you guys swept last weekend and I didn't show up, but then I show up and
I know it.
I'm sorry. I will stay away.
Yeah, if you just not show up, I'd appreciate that.
I'll tell you what though, you were coaching them up. I saw you coaching the boys, and they respond to you well. Obviously,
they did not.
It was just no. It was bad luck. It was really bad luck. You guys were hitting the ball hard. Just couldn't get anything to fall.
Yeah,
that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, we had a hard time getting something going this weekend, but
that sounds like my whole college career. So
I'm getting it going.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. That's awesome. I worked out with you guys, so I'm emotionally attached. So
yeah,
I mean, right? So I'm keeping up.
Yeah, they're keeping up. They're keeping up with you too. Both you guys.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Yeah. No pressure.
Yeah.
No
They always ask about you. They want some socks, by the way.
They want.
I wore your socks the other day. They saw me wearing them, and they're like, "Hey, Coach, how do we get some of those socks?"
Yeah. Good luck. You better go online and buy those bad boys. So today I met Hunter Pence, and so I met Hunter Pence.
He's one of my
time.
former teammates. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, I guess that's right.
Hunter and I played together in the minor leagues. He's a stud.
In the Astros. Well, I played against him
Legends.
when he was
I saw him. You guys play in Lexington together.
We did. You're right.
Yeah. I played against him in AAA.
Pups.
and the big leagues. And I told him, I was like, hey, I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm gonna meet Hunter Pence. He's coming in tomorrow. And she's like, oh yeah, the guy from Fuller House.
What?
He guest starred on Fuller House on Netflix.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Man, that is
so he thought that
awesome.
was funny. But he played with a teammate of mine, Paolo Espino, in Dominican this offseason. And he goes, I saw Espino wearing these orange glasses and these socks with some kind of logo on them. That was you? And I was like, that's right, Hunter Pence. That was me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got.
I'll talk about Hunter for just a second before we get started, because Hunter is one of the most unique players I've ever played with. Early on, right when he got drafted, I remember his first ever professional home run. We were in Oneonta, New York, I believe, and he hit a line drive that I thought was going to hit the pitcher in the head, and it went out to center field.
Wow!
And he was a huge human being at the time, just probably 250 pounds of straight muscle coming out of college. It was crazy how big he was and strong, and he hit that ball like that, and I was like, oh wow, this guy's a beast, right? But he was super awkward at first in the clubhouse, and but then it was amazing how he could talk to the media better than anybody. It was so crazy weird how good he was at that. And then eventually you just realize, man, this guy is so comfortable in his own skin. He is the way he is all the time, and he doesn't let anybody take him off of that. And as I got to know him for the next couple of years, he was just a beaut. I mean, one of the best teammates, worked so hard. And then he eventually went on to win a couple World Series championships with the Giants. I mean, but yeah, he was just a stud. I mean, I really enjoyed playing with him when I did.
Tim, you got to get him on.
Come on, let's go.
Yes. It'd be a great interview, man.
Hey, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Tell him that I'm asking for him to come on too. Maybe
personal favor for Zoe.
Personal favor. Yeah, I'm mailing that in. Be like, come on, Hunter Pence. I call everybody by their first name. I met Sin Shu Chu the other day. I was like, hi, Sin Shu Chu. How are you? I'm incredibly awkward. I don't know why. Joey Gallo. How are you, Joey Gallo? Good thing I don't have to face you anymore, Joey Gallo.
So we talk about what the heck we're going to talk about today?
Okay, all right.
So this is probably labeled the Tommy LaStella interview. Ben, you got a chance to sit down with Tommy LaStella. How was that?
It was awesome. I went and visited him at his hometown in New Jersey, and Tommy's one of the most intellectual but also deep thinkers of anybody that I've ever played with. So we did get in, to some good conversation here, and one of the things I've always appreciated about him the last few years as we've played together is he has no ego, and the guy just loves people around him. He really, really loved being part of our team. He had to move on to the Angels. They just traded him to the Angels, so he was obviously really bummed about that, even at the time as we were doing the interview. But you'll hear that he has had a journey as a player as far as his mindset and how that's changed from the start of his career early on in his life, as we talked about things, to later on. And now I think he's in such a place of both enjoyment and peace as he plays the game and does it well. And I'll tell you what, that's probably what has made him such a great pinch hitter for the Cubs. He's the leading pinch hitter in Cubs history now in a single season. And frankly, he could be starting on a lot of teams. I hope he gets a starting job with the Angels as he battles for that this spring. But he definitely took the role that he was given in Chicago and made the most of it. And that's all I can say is, the guy is a professional in the way that he goes about things. But he's even a better conversational guy than that. So, it's exciting that I got a chance to do this interview. And I said on the interview, man, this is the first time I ever did anything like this. And I did stumble over a lot of things.
No, you did
good. That's totally fine.
It's a great interview. People are going to love it.
But yeah, it was really, really fun to talk to him. So I hope everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, you can tell you guys had a good time. Anyway, should we go ahead and play it?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Ben, lead us in.
This is Tommy LaStella.
All right, this is Ben Zobrist. You're laughing at me. This is Ben Zobrist with the Show and Go. I'm on the road in Paramus, New Jersey right now. I'm sitting in my hotel room with none other than Tommy LaStella. We're in the Hampton Inn in the armpit of America, Jersey. And it's actually not near as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, everybody gives Jersey a bad rap based on, some of the stuff we hear in the clubhouse. But the reality is it's actually pretty nice here.
It's not bad, right?
It's
a sleeper spot. It'll sneak up on you.
It's not bad at all. Yeah, I can see why you actually want to be here. I was questioning you for a while. But, dude, this is really exciting for me. Just so you know, this is the first ever interview I've ever conducted to someone else. I've done obviously thousands of interviews for people interviewing me, but I've never tried to interview somebody else. So this could be an absolute terrible idea. We don't know, but hopefully it'll just be a conversation and somewhat beneficial to people out there. So thanks for being willing to do this. I mean, we've been hanging out the last couple of days and having a great time, having great conversations.
Pretty much just an extension of the last couple of days.
Right? Exactly. Mm-hmm. And the season when we're just goofing around. What most people don't know is that when we're sitting on the bench and it looks like we're watching the games during the season, what we're actually doing most of the time, probably half the time when we're standing next to each other and talking, we're not talking about the game. We're usually talking about something much deeper, philosophical, something. We do talk about the game too, but I think it's we go
usually relate it into the game at some point. But yeah, it is a little bit of a deeper.
Yeah, we have a lot. We've had a lot of good conversations, especially this last year because I wasn't on the field quite as much as I had been in the past, and you're the super bench. You're the super pinch hitter who just pinch hits every time. By the way, Tommy is the Cubs' leading pinch hit batter in the history of the franchise now, right? This past year, you broke the record for pinch hits in a season, correct?
Yeah, it was kind of cool, actually.
Very cool. Yeah. Everybody knew it when you did it. Did you keep the ball? Did they give you it?
They did, and Otis gave it to me, and he put it in a plastic bag because it was like a little wet, and he's like, hey, make sure you take it out of the bag because, you don't want to stay in there and get moldy or something like that. Of course, I didn't take it out of the bag. Mold grew all over it. I had to throw it out. So, so yeah, I had it for a little bit, but yeah, now it's in the trash somewhere.
With penicillin all over it.
Fungus on it, yeah.
Oh my. Well, one of the things I think that, people also would be interested in is I've been around a lot of players my entire career. And I told you this earlier, but this is the truth. The truth of the matter is for Tommy, we'll call him Tommy, but we know the real name is Tom LaStella now. But Tom's one of the most interesting minds I've ever been around. And in baseball, he probably is the most interesting mind I've ever been around. And so the reason is, bro, because you think on a different plane. Like, you think on a different level. You're very smart, but you're also very intuitive and social, and you understand social keys and cues and things like that you're able to relate to people. You're one of the best teammates on the Cubs. Now you're going to the Angels, obviously, and they get the benefit of having that. But you've been a big part of us succeeding the last few years as a team, and maybe you haven't had that much time on the field, but bro, like what you bring, your mindset, your teammate, kind of frame of mind every day, and just engaging with people on a mental level is special.
Thank you.
And so the question I want to get to is like, have you always been that way, or is that something that kind of came, later in your career?
No, definitely not. It wasn't something that always existed for me. I think it was it was born out of like necessity. I was just growing more and more disenchanted with it as it went on. And you and I talked a little bit about it over the last couple of days, but I always wanted to be this great baseball player when I was a kid, and to really like contribute this like ultimate form of entertainment and in the sport. And that was what gave me such joy as a kid, sharing that with my dad and my brother and like all my friends and stuff like that. You go outside and you emulate these guys, and you say you're Ken Griffey Jr. and then you do his stance, and like you act like those guys. Like that was, as a kid, that was always what I looked up to and I wanted to be. And as you move into actually trying to attain it, you run into more and more obstacles, and the obstacles that seemed to set me back the most and hurt me the most were when, people kind of heard my intention to play professionally and to be in the big leagues and put it down or yeah, good luck, dude, or, be realistic, because when you're a kid, we talked about it yesterday, like everybody tells you, yeah, you can do whatever you set your mind to. Like if you work hard and you focus and, you can do whatever. And then it's like, as you get older, it kind of gets like, yeah, you can, but also keep it realistic, and hearing that as a kid, like when I didn't really ever consider wanting to do anything else and telling other people and being met with, lukewarm responses at best, like, hurt my feelings in a way where I was like, okay, I started to look at it then at a certain point, like, okay, well now I got to prove that I can do it. Like this is my dream. Now all of a sudden I felt kind of ashamed for having it because other people didn't think it was possible. And
I know this is true that you had that dream because yesterday we were at your middle school shooting hoops and one of your buddies showed me a picture of you in middle school in 8th grade, and next to it said like all the like what's your favorite hobby, your favorite this, your favorite, and then it's like what's your career, your career in the future, and you said professional athlete. You knew it, that you always had this dream that you wanted to be a major league player. Yeah,
it was always just kind of and it wasn't even like a dream. I don't know. I just kind of like expected it would be where I would end up. I don't know. It felt natural to me. I didn't have to try and talk myself into it. But yeah, and then as you go, it's you run into stuff like that, and then it was like, man, now I really want to show these people that I can do it and like prove that I was good enough. And it was like the motivation went from wanting to like be like the guys that I looked up to when I was a kid and put on this great show for people and contribute to people, and the same way that those guys contributed to my childhood, having something like that to look up to and enjoy with my friends and family. Like it went from that to, okay, well now I got to do it to show people that I can, and that like they were wrong, and look, see, I did it, and that was going to be my crowning achievement. And it was crazy, man. Like it sucked all the fun out of it. It was all about being better than other people and continuing to move up, and it was all about how I was doing, and there was no love for the game. It was all about the results, and that can suffocate your experience in a hurry. It's just like really, it's an intense way to go about doing something that should be done because you enjoy it first and foremost.
Do you think, because the enjoyment wasn't happening for you, do you think like your parents saw that in you, or your coaches could see that you were a gamer, like you played really well and stuff, but like you didn't really have a lot of fun while you were doing it?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that was something that everybody always told me. I was way too hard on myself and way too demanding and unrealistic of my performance. I wanted to set the bar so high that if I actually achieved it, it would blow my mind, right? And hope that I landed somewhere underneath it, which was still really good. Yeah. But yeah, people, I went to talk to somebody about it when I was in high school, man, just like trying to be a little bit more compassionate with myself and understand the learning curve and not be so demanding, because it was, for a time there, it was intense.
I guess as I think about that, I was the same way when I was a kid. I mean, I was really intense and had high expectations. I never thought I was going to be a major league player because I never knew anybody that had ever done that. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be the best version of myself, right? I wanted to find out if I could. Yeah. If I could push myself so far. And both of us were guys that pushed ourselves far. But I would agree with you that I didn't really enjoy the game as much as I wish I had. Yeah. For a long time. And it's really been in the last few years, and I'm 37 years old. Mm. It's been in the last few years that I've really started to enjoy the game like a kid again. Like I feel like I'm that kid that was probably 12 before I started really like diving in and thinking I gotta be good. Before that it was more just like I just want to win. I just want to play. Yeah. And I don't remember any stats I had. I just remember playing and wanting to play with my buddies. Friends, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We would go to the sandlot, bro, and legitimately just lob the ball in and see if we could hit homers, and play against each other in that way. That's the kind of stuff that it's hard to get back to. Once you start diving into this, like, I got to be great, and everybody's looking at me and measuring me, and I got to prove to them that I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. Yeah. You definitely dove fully in to trying to prove that to people, but talk about the balance a little bit of, there are plenty of people out there, kids and ball players, that are willing to make the sacrifice to dive in fully like that, but where's the balance for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, because how do you attack something that you're really passionate about without becoming too over emotionally invested in it, to where,
It's where it owns you.
Right, exactly, where you're obsessed with it and gotta have it. And I think the balance is in understanding why you're doing it in the first place. Having an idea of like why you like that thing, whatever it is you're passionate about, why, and what you love about it. And the pursuit of it is not something that needs to be looked at as like, I gotta master this. Like maybe, you and I were talking about this, maybe the fun of it and the reason why you enjoy it so much is because you can master little bits of it that are like, really enjoyable, and it requires your attention, and learning something like that is really rewarding and fun. But you don't want something that you can ultimately master all the way through, because then guess what? The game's over. Like there's no reason to keep playing. So how do you pursue something in a way that's like requires your fullest attention and it's enjoyable, and not get so caught up in how am I doing at the same time? And you talk about playing the game like when we were kids. That was before really we kept stats and we paid attention to any of that type of stuff. And now when your performance is graded and you're paid accordingly and thought of for how good you are, it puts a little bit more pressure on the performance in order to really get the same type of enjoyment out of it. So you find guys, and myself included, like really chasing that performance as opposed to like the love of it and the pursuit of it and what you really fell in love with as a kid.
When was the first time you noticed that you were really like locked into the performance itself? Whether it was good or bad, like you noticed, like I'm really good and I have this stat and I'm owning this stat as if it's part of me.
Oh, I'm like an actual statistic?
Yeah.
Probably high school, where they started keeping stats. I was always super competitive when I was a kid, and I always wanted to win, and I always wanted to do really well and perform. And I'd say in high school, when it started being counted in stats and stuff, then you start to pay a little bit more attention to that, because everybody, including yourself, now knows exactly how you're doing. So,
really?
Yeah.
So did they have those stats on the board when you were a kid?
No, we certainly didn't have like a board with that type of stuff. But like, they keep them in the local paper, which is, for a kid, that's like a kind of a cool thing. So see your name in the paper or whatever when you're in high school is like first time. It was like, damn, it's kind of sweet. So that's the beginning of it, I guess.
Yeah, the first time I remember that is my senior year of high school, because I was supposedly like one of the better area players at the time.
3-sport star.
Oh yeah,
baseball, football, and basketball. This guy played football just his senior year. Walked on, was the best guy on the field, and then just walked out.
Not quite the best on the field. However, I did have a few interceptions and touchdowns, but
talented D-back.
I like living in the past, living in the glory days. So
8th in high school.
Exactly. When you're in that age and you're starting to think about stats more, and that they matter for potentially more opportunities, that's tough for kids to start to separate. Well, I know if I don't do well enough, I'm not going to get the next opportunity I want to get. Mm-hmm. So how do you try to start avoiding at that age what's so in your face and up front all the time, and everybody's talking about it, and even your parents and coaches might be pointing out like, hey, you're doing so great this year, or hey man, you're not hitting quite as well as you did last year, like you need to kind of pick it up. I mean, when people are always focusing on that around you, how do you as an individual start to pull yourself out of that at all?
I think in a way it's not about avoiding that, the desire to do well, and if that's the game that's being played and you've got to do well to move on to the next level, to allow yourself to want that and allow yourself to get your hopes up for it and really push for it, and to allow yourself the potential to be disappointed and let down, and know that ultimately that won't break you and it's not going to be the end of the world. This is something that you're pursuing, but it a perspective on it that it doesn't have to take up like every single bit of who you are for the rest of your life always, because that's a really narrow-minded view of it. Absolutely go for it and want it all the way through, and really put your best into it, but not in a way where like your sense of self is riding on making it come true, because that's dependent on so many variables that are truly outside your control. You could be a really good player and just get hurt. How many guys like that do we know that we've played with? Like, dude, if this guy was healthy, like he would have been incredible. Yeah. But he just couldn't stay, so there's a ton of stuff like that is outside of your control. So to pursue it with that in mind is like, just because you don't achieve it doesn't mean you failed. You could go all the way through it, and that in itself is an achievement to really put your best.
We talked about this yesterday. You kind of changed your view of success, because at one point you said that you pulled back. In a way, when you pull back and you don't give everything to it and say like, yes, this really does matter to me. Yeah. You're trying to protect yourself from something, right? Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think there are kids that don't work as hard as they possibly could work because of the fear of like, well, I don't want to fail.
Yeah. Anytime you really want something, the idea of not getting it is scary. So something like that requires such a big effort and like emotion behind it and stuff like that, it's a daunting proposition to really put yourself out there and allow yourself the opportunity to not have it realized and to be let down and hurt. And
baseball has plenty of those opportunities.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, every day.
Yes, it is the game of that, of getting let down day in and day out. Even when you do well, like you're still doing well like less than the majority of the time. Yeah. And it'll humble you in a big way. But I think that allowing yourself to make the effort and to really push yourself and to want it in a way that, and it's not about not being afraid, because you're going to be afraid anyway when you're really pursuing something that you want and it matters to you. The fear of not having it is real. It's not something you're trying to get rid of, but it's something to be courageous in front of, in a way that, like, yeah, I know that I'm really putting myself out here right now and I'm really going for it, and I'm scared that it might not turn out, but I'm not going to try and shy away from that. Like, to be brave in those moments and to really go for it. And I mean, that's, to me, when I hear of people doing what they believe in and they're passionate about without really knowing or having a plan, like, I admire that, because it takes a ton of courage and a ton of strength to do it. And doing it with whatever you're doing is important, to go for it like wholeheartedly and be okay to let down, because that's also what allows it to be pretty cool if you get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So talk about as you were transforming that mindset from this, hey, I'm scared a little bit, I'm putting myself out there, but now I'm trying to prove everybody wrong that I can make it, and you weren't enjoying yourself, to now, like, how did you go from there to a different mindset? Because it's obvious that you have a different mindset now than you had when you were younger.
Like I said before, I think, dude, it was born out of necessity. Like, there was really nowhere else for me to go but somewhere else from the direction I was headed. Like, it was very clearly not feeling good to me for some time, you know, the anxiety of not making it, not being good enough, and seeing that show up in my life in so many ways, man. You know, like, when you're short with yourself over the game, like, you're short with everyone you come in contact with. You're not really the best version of you. And like, it had gotten to the point where I was like, man, I'm so over me for being this way, but I didn't know how to stop being that way. Yeah. You know, it was like so ingrained in me. I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn and where to start. And it was kind of just like, that was the first step, admitting that, like, I'm this way and I'd rather not be this way, but I don't know what to do about it. And then in there I realized, like, okay, I don't actually have answers to this. All the stuff that I was sure of, that I was like, yeah, no, I know that that's true. Like, I don't know that any of them are true anymore. So I really had to go back to the drawing board and, like, reevaluate all my thoughts and opinions and my values, the way I thought about myself, and just question the validity of it. Like, is any of this legitimately true, or have I just kind of been telling, you know, the story you tell yourself that's convenient to how you want it to be isn't always the case, and a lot of times it's not, and you end up believing the story because it's easier to do than acknowledging the truth.
Yeah, and this kind of self-work can really kind of take you into a dark place. I know both of us, without getting into a mental health discussion, I know both of us have dealt with depression, you know, and baseball's been a factor in regard to, like, what contributed to kind of us having that view of ourselves and trying to come out of it, you know, at the same time as still, you know, having some issues and struggles. But I kind of see, we've had those conversations, and I've seen how you've changed in the last 3 years, how I've changed in the last 3 years, and how the joy of playing the game has changed. And I think there's a lot of things that if you embrace some of those places that are difficult to go to, you know, like that are the questions that are hard to ask about, why am I really doing this? Do I really love this? And why do I love it? And when you start realizing that your motivations are off, you know, in playing the game, for the longest time in my career, there was a carrot. You know, that's my journey, is that this carrot, right? And I always just, as long as I had a carrot out in front of me, I could keep going. That motivation I'll just get to this next level, this next level, and this next level, and this next level. And I achieved all those things up to the point where I was World Series MVP for the Cubs. You know, and at that point, what other carrots do you have to go for? Right? Yep. I had still had 3 more years to play on this contract. And when that carrot went away after 16, bro, I hit the pause button on life. I was like, what do I do now? Yeah. Because that motivation was gone, you know? But as I've seen the other side of that now, the other side of it is to play the game in a much more wholehearted, joyful way, that you actually love it like a kid again. Right. You know, because you're not trying to achieve something as much as you're enjoying the process of it. You're growing through all the ups and downs, the failures and the succeeding. And, you know, that to me is where we all really want to go with the game. But sometimes the trophies and the stats and everything that everybody else says it's about, it's a facade. It really is. It doesn't actually give you what you really want at the end of the day.
Right. And you can, it's certainly not to say that like going for accolades is like, don't ever do that, because it's awesome to have goals and have something to work for, and like that you can challenge yourself to achieve. That's great. But like those should be add-ons to playing it because you really like to do it. Like it's enjoyable, and then you can really push the limits of how much attention you can pay to it and play with it and mold it and change it. And like that's a really fun process, as long as like you're doing it for the right reasons, because it's still fun to you. And to get caught up in the achievements, yeah, man, it does. If everything you do that like that's really enjoyable, and then somehow it's being quantified after the fact, like eventually you're gonna have to start doing it for the performance, right? And anytime you're doing something that is all about quantifying it and seeing how it's going relative to something else, like you reduce the entire act of doing it into a performance and grading it, and good and bad, and then all of a sudden something that's always really enjoyable to you is something that you slowly begin to loathe, because it's impossible to do it well all the time. And if that's the goal, to do it well all the time, you're going to be let down a lot.
If you do take that all or nothing view of the stats, the game, the wins, the losses, like it's always a win-lose situation, then it becomes a zero-sum game. And that's what it's been for me the majority of my career. You know, if he wins, I lose. If I win, he loses. If and someone's got to win and lose the game, but or win or lose the at-bat. But at the end of the day, just because you lost doesn't mean that you really lose.
Right, that you failed.
That you failed, because there's way more that goes into that, because there's so much growth that can happen through the game. There's so much positive things that you can glean from losing and from failing. We call it failing, air quotes, right? But it's really not, because the game itself, it calls the best of us, and we can still enjoy it. We can still have, even though it's competition and somebody's got to win and lose at the end of the day, you can still make it into something that is enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, also like your success, like in order for you to succeed, I've got to technically fail. In order for you to win, I've got to lose. So like you need both sides in order to have one. So not understanding that occasionally you're going to be on the losing side of somebody else's success, and that's okay, because like you need it that way too if you're going to ever experience your success. They're interdependent, and to try and only experience one, to only experience success, A, is unrealistic, and B, you don't want that. You don't want something that you win and do perfectly every time. Like, what a bore. Thank God the game isn't like that. It would give us nothing to chase. It wouldn't be enjoyable to pursue that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly why fans like to follow it.
Right.
Because they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you always got the success you were going for,
right,
and it was that easy to get, well then it wouldn't be fun.
There's no entertainment in that. The predictability of it. That's why it's worth watching. That's why it's worth doing.
Yeah. And people need to remember that, because I think we get so lost in the winning and needing to succeed and needing to get the stat that we're going for that you forget to actually enjoy the process.
Yeah. And it's so much harder to enjoy the process when your process is being tallied up, and then you are basically rated according to how good your process was. So like even the process then gets turned into like a number, and it's so much more difficult to enjoy it that way, but it is kind of the game as it is.
We mentioned this yesterday, that there's often times where fans will come up to us and be like, "Hey man, you really kind of messed up my fantasy team this year."
So you're actually on fantasy teams? I haven't made a fantasy roster in ages. But yeah.
We're working on that.
One of these days.
But the funny thing is, like when fans say stuff like that to you at times, you start to feel like you are just this entity to them.
Yeah.
You're just the number. Like you're just you're wearing this costume and you're the actor in their play.
Right.
And it becomes so easy to start to see yourself that way, because you're doing it every day. Like if we had weekends where we didn't have the costume on, and we could just be normal people and everybody treated us that way, then maybe we'd be able to separate it a little bit better. But I want to talk to you about how difficult it is to separate Tom from Tommy LaStella. Okay?
Yeah.
Because,
well, dude, I can't imagine, I'm a nobody. I can't imagine being somebody who's actually a somebody that is faced recognizable places and has to deal with that all the time. Like, that's a big burden. And absolutely, like, it's an appreciation for you, but also, too, like, it is difficult for you guys. And I watch, and you guys handle it with such grace and class, dude. It really is. Like, the guys on the Cubs that I've been around, it's like, it's incredible to watch, truly. And I know it gets tiring and difficult for you guys at times, but
yeah,
like,
well, you're obviously not paying that close of attention because I can be a real jerk.
Dude, it's like 1 in a million. Though. You guys are always patient and appreciative, and Cub fans were so awesome with that because like 99 times out of 100, they want to come up and just tell you how much they appreciate what you do, and that
they are
awesome.
amazing in Chicago. They're very, I would say, they're very respectful in the way that they approach the players, and even if they see us out at restaurants, they're like, hey, I don't want to bother you, just want to say hi.
Right.
It's occasionally they'll ask for something, but they're really blue collar, it seems like, around there, which I really enjoy. But that concept of Tommy versus Tom, like you grew up and you were always Tom Stella. I saw this on the board. You have this PE record at your middle school for like kicking a kickball into the basketball hoop from across the gym. Like, it's apparently I'm betting that your school is the only school that's ever done any sort of record like that.
And that's my claim to fame right there.
That's it.
That's where I go back. I'm like, I did it. I made it in basket shot. It was worth some ungodly amount of runs in kickball baseball, by the way. So it was a big deal for the time when I was like, whatever, 4th grade.
At what point in your career did you, though, start taking on this persona of, okay, I need to be Tommy.
Yeah.
I need to be this like pro major league player that everybody looks at a little bit differently.
Yeah, and it's that mindset that gets created during the pursuit of it, right? That like, that guy who's hungry and whatever, and like, it's funny because we were talking yesterday about like Tommy versus Tom, and like when I grew up, everybody just called me Tom. You saw it on the board; it said Tom. And then like when I was in college, it was actually at St. John's. They put it on my bag tag for the year. It was Tommy Stella, and I was like, kind of sounds sweet. I was like, it's got a nice ring to it. I'll use it for baseball from here on out. So then like when I went to Coastal, I put it down as Tommy again, and like since then it's stuck. And you and I were talking about that over the last however many years. It was funny because I always introduce myself as Tom. That's when I'm doing my internal self-talk and I'm like, oh, Tom, you idiot, whatever it is. Like, I say Tom, I don't call myself Tommy, but like I noticed that when I would introduce myself to people, I was starting to say Tommy more than Tom. I know this might sound insignificant, but like it was kind of a revelation to me. Like, you're actually starting to feel like this other guy more times than not, like more than you feel like your regular self from before. And that was kind of alarming, but like, I didn't really pay the attention that it should have been at the time.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. I've really done the same thing where, I am automatically looking at somebody else and saying, well, they're seeing me as Ben Zobrist, the baseball player.
Right.
So then I feel like I have to start acting like
playing that part,
play that role instead of just being myself, just being real. And I think we get into those patterns as a young person when we start identifying more with our sport than with who we are outside of that. Just as a regular human being. Like when people get to know us, they realize we have our own problems. We have our own issues, our own insecurities.
So regular and normal, yes.
Absolutely. And we laugh about the same things, and we're just normal. And once people get to know us, they don't need to be nervous to talk to us or whatever, because guess what? We have our own insecurities.
Yeah, dude, like we were talking about yesterday, like I'm actually nervous to talk to you. I'm nervous that I'm not going to live up to the billing of being like a cool experience for you to meet like a Major League Baseball player at times. Like to be able to deliver that in that way
that
for
experience
people
that they're kind of looking for.
Yeah, that people are hopeful for when they meet you. You want to deliver that, and it's also tough to be like, dude, I'm sorry, I don't know how to be that for you. Like, I'm incredibly ordinary, and like not in like a, oh, look how ordinary I am, but like, I don't want to mess it up for you type of thing. I don't want to not give you a cool story or a cool experience. And it's like, you do feel that pressure to deliver, man. And that can make us a little uncomfortable too.
Yeah, and in a way, then you start living out of this, I'm Tommy Stella more than just Tom, or I'm Ben Zobrist, the 2016 WS MVP.
Because you don't want to let people down.
Yeah, because I want, that's what they see me as, so I'll play that part. Right. Whereas the cool thing is when you're comfortable in your own skin, and you're comfortable in certain settings. Like, I felt like when we were hanging out, people treated you just like Tom.
Yeah.
And then, they may have been viewing me like Ben Zobrist, but I was doing my best to just be Ben.
Right.
I'm just I'm not this super outgoing, like, gonna take over the room kind of personality. I got to be okay just being like, hey, yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna sit down and just listen.
Right. And
more than I need to tell a cool story about what I'd done, you know, in my career.
Because it's interesting. Like, we have it built up a little bit in our minds that, like, they want that experience way more than they actually do. They just, most people, like, appreciate it more when they feel like walking away, hey, it's just a regular guy. It's pretty cool. Like, it's weird. We have it built up like they want this cool experience in meeting you, and if they even notice, we just assume that they're noticing so much. And I agree. It's a much simpler way of looking at it when you can keep it to being your simplest self. Yeah.
And it's really hard. I think when I think about younger players, they're spending the majority of their time away from school doing this sport and pursuing this performance.
Pursuit.
Yeah, it's a lot of pursuit, and it almost feels like there's no time for anything else except for your sport. So you get swallowed up in the identity of what you're doing. And the hardest thing to do, I think, when you're spending so much time and effort pursuing, let's say just one of those statistical goals or reaching a certain level. And like we said, it's not wrong to pursue those things. But if we're not careful, baseball or your sport can start to become such a distraction to kind of even knowing yourself and knowing who you are deep down away from those pursuits, because those pursuits are so all-encompassing.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how much time kids have to spend in school. Even in college, like, there's a lot of school time, and then any time away from school, you're pursuing this sport, and sometimes your whole identity and who you are to away from that is just non-existent.
Right.
Because you don't get any other time. Whereas as you get older, I think what we all start to realize is man, if I don't start viewing myself outside of this context, then I won't know myself at all. I won't even have a clue who I am.
Yeah.
Then when it goes away, it becomes more of a drastic
identity crisis.
Right.
And then when you're a kid, you don't know that that's important. You don't know that it's important to always, consider what you're doing and why, and to always be talking to yourself in that way and maintaining yourself. Like, we don't realize it's an issue or, like, valuable until you go long enough without it, and then all of a sudden it creeps up on you and you're like, oh, like, I didn't know that I needed to do that, right? It's not something that's just like a given. And when you're pursuing a sport like that when you're a kid, or anything really, like, you become the pursuit of it. You become that thing that you're doing, and, like, all other things kind of, fade in significance. So you can see how, like, that type of tunnel vision, you can look up in 10, 15 years and be like, this is all I've been thinking about for however long, and I haven't really considered anything else.
So how do you start to consider something else while you're still doing it? Because that's the trick that I'm still trying to figure out. Everybody's trying to figure out.
What do you think about it?
I mean, what I'm finding is that I have to be intentional about pursuing things away from it.
A healthy balance.
A healthy balance of, like, I'm not just pursuing baseball. I'm not just pursuing education. I'm pursuing, like, what do I really like doing outside of these things? Because, yes, I do love baseball. I love to play.
Right.
But at some level, I'm not going to be doing that anymore.
Right.
So I need to know what my other hobbies are. I need to know what I really enjoy about the game that will move on. Like, I know one thing in the last couple of years, I love being outside. I love just the view on the grass, smelling the grass, like, I love the actual challenge of just something that seems like it's calling me to the best of myself. And that doesn't have to end when baseball ends.
No.
There's a lot of things that I can start to recognize that are just in me that will never go away, even though the game itself will go away.
Right.
And so that's kind of, being intentional is definitely one of the things that has been intentional about who I am if I have to stop doing this, and will soon. But who I am apart from those things is a big question to ask, especially when you're still developing that. You don't, when you're 15, 20, 25 years old, I mean, there's a lot of development in those years that it's important to start paying attention early on to your emotions and asking yourself why. And why am I motivated? Why do I do this? Why do I not do other things?
Oh, yeah, and I think we get so specialized in our approach to things that, you spend so much time paying attention to only one thing, and you don't really consider other things. And it was that, what did we say the other day? That quote, it's like, it's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't true. And to be operating from a place of like, yeah, this is what I want, and I know it for sure, and you don't ever question it. And it's something you've operated from that place for now 10 years without really being sure of why. And then you look, objectively 10 years later, and you're like, oh man, like I had it wrong. It's not the thing you didn't know that got you in trouble. It's what you knew to be true that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, this conversation has been awesome. There's been so many things that I think people can relate to or can chew on. It's always amazing having conversations with you, bro. Like
you too.
When I knew that you got traded in the off season, it obviously I was sad because I wasn't going to be your teammate again, but I knew it was a relationship. I even told you this at the end of the year because we didn't know what was going to happen. I said, it's something that I want to keep pursuing, is talking to you and spending time with you. And so I'm glad I came up to the armpit.
Me too, man.
And I was surprised there wasn't trash laying around everywhere in Jersey like I potentially thought. It's actually pretty clean and nice up here. So thanks for welcoming me into town and then obviously joining me for this show and go.
No, dude, thank you for having me. And as always, I learned so much from our talks, man. Seriously, they're so enjoyable for me. So thank you.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, we're off.
So there it is. I mean, a lot of good conversation, a lot of good things that we were able to discuss. What was it about that stuff that stuck out to you guys?
I'll go
Coach,
first.
what you thinking?
The one thing that really stood out to me was, it seems like there was a moment, or a series of moments where he seemed to really start getting a lot more joy out of the game. And he made the comment about feeling suffocated and playing just for results. I think in the first part of that interview, he talked about that. And, just the perspective he had and the joy, it really came across to me just in his voice, how he just genuinely enjoys the game, and enjoys the challenge of it, and is able to kind of detach himself from the results and the achievement and kind of the success that we all see when we follow statistics in the game, and that he kind of detaches from that and can find joy in the game regardless of what the box score says at the end of the game. That really stood out to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's very difficult, I think, to do that, and unless you have a little bit lighter of a grip on the game. And that's where you heard earlier him talking about how he was so entrenched in his dream and vision that he was trying to prove people wrong, and there was this grip on the game that was like this, so tight, that, there's just no breathing room. That's where the suffocation happens. You don't realize you're suffocating yourself, but that's kind of what he was doing. And then he describes this change and this transformation, and then finally he's in a place where he feel like it's a lighter hold, but he also still loves it. He loves it even probably more, is what he said. So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I thought it was a great conversation. At some point, he said that he wanted to prove people wrong, and I think I'm quoting him right. He said it kind of suffocated him, and he didn't enjoy the experience. And so I would love to ask you guys, what was your motivation as a kid, and how has it evolved to now? Because I feel like it's going to change. For me, I just loved playing the game as a kid, and I always wanted to get to the next level. That was me, because in Cleveland, Ohio, if any listeners are from Cleveland, you feel me. It's not baseball is not super popular up there. And so, all the sports indoors is going to be a little more popular. So that was my goal and motivation. Really was just to get out of Cleveland. I was trying to find any way to get out of that city.
The mistake by the lake.
So, yeah, baseball was my chance.
No offense. I like Cleveland.
I
like Cleveland. It's where we won the World Series, bro.
I love Cleveland, though.
Did you call it the mistake by the lake?
But
I've never heard that.
I didn't come up with that. I didn't come up with the name.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's there.
I'm just repeating what I heard.
Gosh.
I would love to ask you guys that. What was your motivation as a youth, and how has it changed? Because I feel like that is really important for kids and the parents to talk about that. What is it that drives you on the inside? Because no one really talks about what they're thinking about and what they're feeling each year.
As a kid, I just wanted to get baseball right. You know, if I was playing second base, I was a second baseman, and I wanted to turn double plays correctly. I wanted to feel the ball correctly and get a guy out. When I was a catcher, I wanted to be the best catcher. I wanted to set up correctly. I wanted to catch the ball right. I wanted to throw people out right. I wanted to block balls correctly. Now as a pitcher, that's the same thing I want to do. I want to throw the pitches the way I'm supposed to throw them and maximize that the best that I can. I mean, I talked with a big league pitching coach today about that. Like, how can I maximize what I'm doing? I know I'm good. How do I maximize on that? And for me, from a kid and even now, I just want to get it right. Baseball is a game that, you know, you have the freedom to kind of do things a different way, but the result's the same. If you're a pitcher, you're trying to get outs. If you're a hitter, you're trying to get on base. And so in those parameters is really where I lived and where I thrived. And there was really nothing outside of that. Now, when you start adding in, well, this is your livelihood and this is your lifestyle and things like that, some things change, but for me, it doesn't. For me, it's all about getting the game right in whatever role that I'm in.
Awesome. Zoe, what about you? We've talked about this a few times.
When I was younger, I wanted to win so bad, and I hated to lose so much that it was easy for me to want to be motivated. It's just the motivation was about winning. You know, I just could not lose. I hated to lose. So as I've gotten older, that failure that drove me for a long, long time, I started to fail enough, and I lost some of that. That drive that came from failure, which I think is good because the drive now comes from a different place. It comes from a place of enjoying the game and loving the challenge itself. And also, I think the motivation is a lot more to just doing something that I love to do. You know, when you really enjoy it and you realize, like, it's not just that I have to win, I can lose and still enjoy this. I do love to try to be excellent. I can't do it half-heartedly. That's definitely not for me, but at the end of the day, I think the motivation for me is more in just really enjoying it and wanting to do it to the best of my ability. You know, it's something you never really know what your ceiling is. I feel like every year of my career there was something that happened that I never thought I would do in the game or accomplish in the game or just be at the field when that happened. And there's just always new things happening with the game that I get excited to discover what's going to happen next, you know, and something new, you know, even with my own swing, I'm like, man, what am I going to figure out this year that I never figured out before? Because there's always something new there, you know, and that for me is an exciting new discovery. You never stop learning and growing no matter how old you get. I'll retire and I still will have a lot to learn. So,
Zoe, when was the moment where your motivation, though, got in the way of you enjoying the game? You were trying to be perfect, and perfection, it was excellence, but then it kind of flipped over to perfectionism.
Yeah, early on, I mean, there was a lot of that. And Tommy talked about it too. I think there's so much pressure that you feel to either, I wasn't trying to prove anybody wrong like he was, but my pressure was, I got to win. Because if I don't win, I'm not going to be happy, you know, and things aren't going to be going right. And you know, the more you lose, the more that you feel that failure, and then you have to get rid of that feeling. So it was like trying to avoid the feelings of failure that I hated to feel, instead of embracing that and being like, no, this is good. This will be good for me too. You know, this will be a growing experience. This is something not to shy away from. This is something to dive into and really kind of explore. Why does it make me feel so bad to lose?
When did you make that switch? When did you make that switch?
You
kind of learned that.
You know what I mean? No, it's an ongoing experience. It really is. Like, it's a year-to-year thing, and I'll learn. Like I said, this year I'll learn some new things, and emotionally you learn some new things about dealing with stuff. And you could hear that in Tommy, that as time has gone on, he is emotionally dealing with the game in a different way than when he was younger.
The question I would want to ask him from that, and when he was talking about proving people wrong, like that was a huge motivator for him, and you know, the proving something to other, I could really relate with that because I was like that too. Like, I constantly wanted feedback from people. Like, I wanted them to think positive of me by my performance, and I would want to know, you know, that's a double-edged sword because that motivated him to work hard and be great. And if you took that away, I wonder what would have motivated him then. You know, like, if you're not trying to prove something to somebody and you're 17, 18 years old, at that age, it's hard for somebody to replace that motivation with something else. I don't know if young people are developed enough to quite grasp what really motivates them, and that can make somebody be really, really successful. And I would just be curious about what his thoughts are on, maybe as though you could speak on that. If that wasn't going to motivate him back then, what would have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that is the driver a lot of times for people excelling, is things that they eventually decide, no, this isn't healthy to use this as the accelerator. But for whatever reason, it was what drove him. And I mean, to replace that, I think obviously he would love to have some of that time back to enjoy the game more. But the way that I think, now, both of us, he and I both, as we've played the game and talked about a lot of things together, we're trying to think of the game in a whole new way. It's something to embrace. You embrace all of it, not just the success, not just the winning, not just the proving of people wrong. It's not even about that. It's about really just, Joe Madden said it last year, it's putting the art back in the game. It is an art to watch someone else make an incredible play and throw a guy out first, and it was against your team, right? And you still have to be able to appreciate that play. And I think a lot of times we get so caught up in the winning that we're like, if it was against us, we're always rooting for the other guy to lose and make an error, and we're always rooting for ourselves to win instead of like recognizing great play everywhere on the field. And I know that Tommy himself has mentioned that to me, that really is a part of how he looks at the game now. That's way different, and it's a way different motivator, because then when you play your game, you're trying to be the most creative and best version of yourself to bring the whatever you can bring to the table. You're bringing it, and people are recognizing that, and it's a more artistic expression of who we are as human beings, but also athletes.
And I think where that comes into play is, and he talked about this, with stats. Stats are great, that's fine, but when you reach the age where stats start to matter, I think your perception of things change. I look at my son when he plays, Little League, and the other team makes a great play. Their first instinct is like, oh, like, wow. And that awe of seeing something amazing on the field. To me, I feel like when you start worrying about stats, maybe around high school or college, definitely pro ball, I think you start losing that you kind of get shell-shocked of like, oh, yeah, I've seen a great play before, rather than going, wow, that was a great play, and appreciating it for what it is. And that's appreciating the game. Not saying that stats are bad, but when you put too much focus on them, I think you lose a little bit of what you're watching in a game day in and day out. I think he alluded to that pretty well.
Do you think it's possible if someone would have came to you at that age, let's say high school or college, where it was kind of new to you of like, oh, stats, and it means a lot. It means your playing time. And if someone told you what we're saying now, would you guys be able to turn the switch? Or do you think you just had to go through that, and now you can say it now, Zoe, because you're 37?
37, man?
I think it's what you. Oh yeah. Don't tell anybody else that.
Yeah, 27. Yeah.
It has to be taught. It's not just something that you're just going to get through experience. Yeah, you're going to experience it, and eventually you will get taught, hopefully. But I think it can be taught, and I think it can be caught. So if you are a player or a coach that feels like you get it, well, you have an obligation, I believe, to your team and the people around you to try to teach that and really promote that. Because guess what? Like, the things that, we're around, that they are going to have an influence on us eventually. So if you're a coach out there, or a parent for that matter, you have a lot of say in this, especially while your kid is riding in the car with you, to promote the right kind of things and not the wrong things. And I think, that was something that Tommy, obviously, from his own experience, was a raw point for him when people told him he had dreams, and he said, yeah, I think I can do this. And then they said, well, maybe not, though. Maybe you should temper that, kind of be more realistic. And that was hurtful to him. That was kind of like, that was the fuel eventually, but it was unhealthy in the end. It's not really the fuel that he wanted. And, you can help a kid think of the game in the right way.
I totally agree.
Absolutely.
I see this, and I remember being in college, having the CDs from Steve Springer, the quality at bats, batting average is evil, like that. I remember being a college player thinking that's true, like that. It freed me up, and I've seen it free up I work with college guys every day. Like I see them on both sides. I see them be debilitated by stats, and I see some other guys that kind of learn to move past that and find success regardless of what their stat line says.
Well, you can tell a guy when he goes out to the mound on the pitching standpoint, you can tell a guy walks out there and he knows his ERA. He knows how many people he's struck out, how many people he's walked, and he'll strike a guy out and he'll look up at the scoreboard because, in AAA, a lot of times they'll update that sucker in real time. So, if you're on that threshold of like a 3, you struck a guy out, you're at 299. That means you're, amazing. And to me, looking at that, that's so arbitrary. Like it's so relative in certain ways. You don't really know. You can't really get the full picture with stats. They can be misleading. They can help. They can hurt. And that's for certain people to see. And to me, it's like an end of the year report. Like, I don't want to know my stats. I don't care. Now, if there's something that's trending, I need to know. Like, hey, you walk more people than you face. You face 12 hitters. You walk 13. How'd you do that? I don't know.
It's got to be a record.
But yeah, there's certain aspects that you need to know about. But I mean, to me, that's a more of an end of the year thing. It takes you away from the moment. If you're throwing a pitch, and it goes with very simple stats like a miles per hour. How many times have you seen a guy throw a pitch, and then in his windup and throw, he spins around, he's looking at the scoreboard. where MPH comes out. Yeah,
yes,
it's kind of built into his mechanics.
Yes.
We get wound up in that stuff and we think it matters. And it to me, a lot of times it can take you away from what's going on in the moment, especially as a hitter. When you're out there and your average and you get out and then you get out again and you just see that, average dropping a little bit, but it starts creating anxiety. And to me, a lot of times stats can actually create more anxiety than, confidence.
Yeah, you mentioned anxiety, and the word that comes to mind too is fear, right? So they go hand in hand. And anytime you start entering into that stats game and you start looking at it and going, oh, well, I don't want that number and I do want this number. Well, the bad number to you, if you get up near the 5s as a pitcher or as a hitter, you're below the Mendoza line. There's a lot of fear there, right? Yeah. So everybody's looking at that number going, well, how do I keep that number from going down, or how do I keep that number from going up, or whatever way you want it to be. And I want to bring this up because that emotion of fear, and Tommy talked about it in the interview in a way I'd never heard it talked about, which was you can be afraid, you can let fear drive you to not work as hard because you're afraid of failing, right? So you think as long as I don't give my whole 100%,
you don't have as much skin in the game.
Exactly. You're not putting yourself out there as much, right? There's a vulnerability that you're not allowing in a situation. And I had never really thought about that because I'm like overdoing it more than I'm ever underdoing it. But I guess there are some guys that, maybe, and especially kids that are like so afraid of it that they're just like, you know what? I'm just going to pull away. Have you guys ever seen that? I thought that was interesting.
It was interesting.
I know that it happens.
Yeah, I know it happens too. I don't. I think that's hard to see. I'm sure people feel that and they don't put themselves out there as much because they're scared of that failure. I think it's hard to identify though. There's always people that work harder than others, but identifying why those guys don't work as hard, I think, is a really hard thing to. You kind of got to get deep in their psyche to kind of unpack the reasons why. But I'm sure it happens. I mean, it was definitely a new thought for me too. I'd never quite heard it put that way before, but it was definitely interesting to hear him talk like that.
I think just bringing up a realization that, have some awareness, even at a young age, of especially the parents and the coaches of going, okay, what are we doing here? Is it about the stats or is it about just playing the game the right way? If you have a baseline for that, you're going to go out there and play the game the right way. Mm-hmm. For me personally, just because my dad coached and he played, he had an idea of what was going on, and maybe he meant to do it, maybe he didn't, but he gave us a baseline of like, this game is a game, yes, but there's a certain way it's supposed to be played. There's certain things that you're supposed to be, that are expected of you. But when you start adding pressures and stats and the anxieties of stuff like that, I don't think that shouldn't be a part of the game. It is a part of the game. Believe me. Stats are definitely a part of the game. But if you can shield yourself from that, it keeps you in the moment of what you're doing. What I felt from Tommy, just listening to him speak and how passionate he is about it, I feel like this is a guy that goes up there and has so much freedom when he hits and he's in the field that he can go out there and he's just uninhibited by what's going on around him. Yeah. What everyone else usually focuses on, I feel like he has an advantage over guys because he's going out there with that freedom and he's not chained to it. And, I mean, just think about all the guys you've been in a clubhouse with, all the guys you've coached, teammates that are just chained down to stats and expectations of what's going on around them.
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time, and that's where – as a coach, as a parent, even as a player, you got to find a way to pull yourself out of that, or help pull your kid or your players out of that situation. How do you, coach, try to do that with your players when you know that that's a struggle for them in that moment?
It's different for every guy. It's hard to say one thing that works. Sometimes I remember one day this fall, I had a pitcher that really struggled in an inter squad. And I walked over to him, after he had come out of the game. He's kind of leaning on the rail, and I was like, I just had a conversation with him about anything but baseball. I was like, hey man, how's classes going? What, how your parents doing? What are you going to do this weekend? Just try to let him know that this isn't everything. I didn't even bring up how he pitched, and he was kind of looking at me like expecting that I was just going to rip him, because he didn't throw very well, and I was like, just telling him, look, it's okay. There's more to it than this. Like this one outing is not going to define you. Is what I was trying to tell him. And I think there's a time and a place for that. And that's not how I would handle every situation, but I felt like that's that one player needed in that moment.
That's awesome.
What else you guys got? What else about the interview? I want to hear more from Costello on this because I know there was some stuff that you had, but what else about the interview with Tom stuck out to you?
No, I honestly just had more to share, I guess, just on that one topic of what drives you, because even in other, not just sports but business, like if you listen to people talk about their story about them getting to the top, whatever the top is, but like just being super successful, man, I can't tell you how many times they will share a story of like a past hurt or a past story that was tough, and that was their motivator. Like it was because they had one parent, or they lost a loved one, or their dad thought that they were worth nothing, so they wanted to prove them wrong. Mm-hmm. And that is what got them all the way to where they are. But the ones that are transparent will also share, hey, that was my motivator, and I got to the top, but I did not spend a lot of time with my family. I didn't have a lot of balance. I didn't take care of myself. Or, like what you were talking about, Zoe, I didn't enjoy the process of – I missed out on opportunities to really enjoy the process of the game, because that motivator from within, from a past story, was like a huge driver for me. And so I don't really have an answer to that. I just think it's really interesting that I do hear that over and over again from people in different circles that are at the top of their industry or game.
I got one more thing that I know we got to finish this up at some point, but he made the statement towards the end of the interview. He said, losing does not equal failure. And that really stood out. Like I kind of
that was good.
Perked up when he said that. Like I'd never heard it put like that before, and it's true. And he talked about the courage that it takes and bravery. He used the word bravery, I think, about the game beats you up. You're going to fail, in baseball. You're going to struggle. You're going to lose. But having the courage to get back up and keep trying and keep pushing and keep grinding, that's success. Like the stats are not success, but it's having the courage to get back up in front of everybody after you're struggling, after everybody knows what your batting average is, and get in the box and dig in and keep grinding. That's success. Like you may lose the game, but you're successful because you have you're brave enough to get back in the arena. And that really, I thought that was gold when he said that.
It's like you might have lost the game, but the game didn't beat you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're still victorious at the end of the day if you can find your way to grow through that experience.
Yeah. That's
Well,
good
one of
stuff.
the things he talked about was, what's going to make your successes, your wins sweet. There has to be losing. He actually went really in depth. Like, to be a winner, there has to be a loser. And sometimes you're going to be on the winning side, and sometimes you're going to be on the losing side. And each one has to, plays off of each other. You can't have both. And I mean, I know that seems ridiculous. We all know that, but digging deep into that, you're going, sometimes you have to be on the receiving end of the loss, and you can literally do everything correct and lose a ball game. Yeah, I think that's what's so amazing about baseball, especially at the big league level. Play 162 games. I mean, there's some games, right, Ben? You play a game, you do everything right, and your team loses. It's like, how do you chalk that up?
1-0. 1-0.
Yeah.
1-0.
You lost, but you're not a failure. I mean,
you're not a failure. Yeah, and I think having that perspective, going, you know what, they got us today, and then pushing forward to tomorrow, because you could tell a sense of urgency in his voice, and how he prepares for the next day. It was more of a, okay, that's in the past, let's move forward. And I mean, to me, that's baseball in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love it too when coaches. This is a coach thing. I love it when I hear coaches say, "Yeah, we won the game, but." The team, we didn't play the way we're capable of playing, or when a coach says, yeah, we might have lost today, but the guys played really well. They played a great game, and I'm very proud of how they played today. I mean, that kind of a thing to me fires me up, because it's like that coach is seeing something that most people aren't seeing. They're looking at the box score and talking to the coach and saying, oh, sorry, coach, it was a tough one. And the coach is going, no, actually, the guys played really well. We just got beat. We just got beat, but they played really well.
I mean, so I was just going to say the same thing. I've heard coaches talk after the game saying, hey, we did a great job, but, man, that other team, they just played better. They had a great game, and he's just talking up the other team. There's coaches that do that, and I respect those moments for sure.
It makes everyone better. Even if you're watching the other team, if you're paying attention, and I always say, like, once you get in, it's free to pay attention. Right? So you can watch. You're going to see something you've never seen before, and you're going to see someone do it a way maybe you've never seen it before. We were talking about Hunter Pence earlier. I mean, that guy does everything weird, right? So there's no one right way to do something, but the way baseball is, you're going to get categorized in certain ways. It may look funny, but as long as you get the job done, that's what matters. And going out there every time and just doing the best you can, and you want someone to see that. Because you're paying attention, they're paying attention, and really that's what matters in the end. Win or loss, that fades away. But when you're paying attention to what you're doing, you're going to get better.
It takes courage. It takes courage to do that. It really does. And I'm glad he used that word, because I think a lot of young players need to hear that they need to be acknowledged for having that courage every day to get back up there and keep working hard in spite of the slump that they're in or whatever. I just think that doesn't get acknowledged enough in this game, I don't think.
I think kids should and coaches should make that a point. I mean, it's inspiring, really.
Yeah, it is.
To tell a young kid and tell my son, like, hey, whatever happened in the game today, whatever, you showed courage. You got up there and you did it again. Like, you're going to go back out there tomorrow. Like, just keep after it. To me, that's one of the biggest motivators. I don't think that ever goes away, no matter your age.
Good interviews, though.
Attaboy.
Yeah,
it was good.
It was fun.
First one, man. He killed it.
I don't know if it was a good one, but Tommy did great. Tom LaStella.
Tom, yeah. I'm going to call him Tom from now on. I don't even know him. Tom got hit off me in AAA. Yeah.
I'm telling you, seeing that thing at his middle school, that stat where he kicked the kickball into the rim or something.
Yeah,
like
that was funny.
It was ridiculous. I mean,
I'm gonna go to the gym and try to do that all day tomorrow and see if I can kick one in.
It's tough, apparently. I mean, he was a legend in New Jersey after that.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
It was fun.
Well, that does it for this episode of Show and Go. If you have any questions or comments, topics you'd like to hear discussed on future episodes, feel free to interact on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Show and Go. And make sure to visit us on our website, which is awesome, theshowandgo.com. And if you haven't written us a review, get on that. I'm not going to address that anymore until next episode, but let's go. Right? Give us some stars. Let's don't make this awkward.
Too late.
On behalf, yeah.
Which you just did.
On behalf of myself, Zoe, J Money, and Coach, thanks for listening, and join us next time on the Showing Go. Yeah, I have to. This remote thing, man, we can't. We got to sync up.
Okay, so.